Best Practice Episode. From the Chairman Kim Woo-Choong's Daewoo Global Management. Episode 1, A Tire Plant in Sudan. A decade ago, we built a tire plant in Sudan. This was the first plant ever built internationally by a Korean firm. And a lot of people had their reservations, because Daewoo had never even dealt in the tire business. But I began by counting the possibilities. What possibilities? Although Sudan had a market for tires, it had no plant and was losing foreign exchange by importing expensive foreign tires. So I figured the Sudanese would welcome such a project. Sudan is 80% desert, and cities are quite far from one another, thereby increasing the demand for ground transportation. Also, I received information from a reliable American source that a huge oil field had been discovered in the southern country. Such an oil field would greatly bolster economic development, and the demand for cars and trucks would rise proportionately with economic development. For each additional vehicle, there would be demand for at least 5 tires, and tires wear out much faster in the hot desert than they do in more moderate climates. That was how I viewed the market, and things have turned out as I calculated. The tire plant is busier than ever now. The plant has undergone a number of expansions, but demand is so great for our tires that now people even pay in advance. Lesson learned. Right from the start, you should be optimistic about whatever you do. But there is one thing that is essential to turn possibilities into reality, and that is dedication. As you must have a philosophy of life. People often think of something lofty and difficult when they hear the term philosophy. But a living philosophy is not so difficult. No matter what you do, dedicate yourself to it. And if you can dedicate yourself to the benefit of society, that is enough. Episode 2. Entering the Vietnamese market. For example, when we first entered the Vietnamese market, I sent a survey team to study the possibilities for business in Vietnam. That gave me information. Then I went to see for myself to get confirmation of the information. During discussions, I spotted business opportunities like establishing a joint venture for making textiles. I suggested that rather than bringing in new equipment, we could use some of the idle spindles in Korea. They were not being used because of a lack of personnel, and because higher wages were moving Korea to automate. I knew there were 500,000 Korean spindles sitting idle. I could buy them for 20% of their cost. I went to see the Vietnamese factories and studied their salaries, which showed me this was feasible. They had 20 to 30-year-old equipment, while our idle spindles were only 10 years old. Vietnam was short of foreign exchange, but had a good workforce. Seeing the Vietnamese factories, I immediately made a decision to bring in the old Korean machines. Instead of $100 million investment for our venture, $20 million was now enough. The building already existed, along with ample electricity, water, and workers. Changing the equipment would take time, so I decided to ask our Vietnamese partner to send at least 30% of its engineers and technicians to Korea, where we could put them to work in a factory and train them for 6 months. Then they could go home and produce better. The factory in Vietnam would pay for the machinery by producing goods that we would buy. I made this decision on the spot and signed a contract. Business in third world countries is never just a single transaction. We needed local money to operate that joint venture factory in Vietnam. Rather than bringing in cash, I brought in merchandise, which could be sold in the market for a profit because Vietnam is short of everything. Lesson learned. Within one business, we can have many other businesses. If we have too much local currency, we buy products to export and earn foreign exchange that way. This is the best thing to do when there's inflation in a country. If you go to a country and evaluate all the information, you can create other business on the spot. Episode 3, Approaching a New Market in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, every country has debt, and many businessmen say that it is ridiculous to try to do business there. I go there and see things differently. In Yugoslavia, for example, we are developing other opportunities by purchasing wheat. The local interest rate for deposits there is 20% monthly. So I paid in advance for 2 months and got a large discount on the wheat. I can sell that wheat in the Middle East at the international price and earn a profit. Other wheat shipments will be paid for by bartering our autos and electronic goods, on which we make a profit too. I handle these kinds of special transactions myself because they depend on knowing the situation around the world and being able to make quick decisions. The Daewoo staff, of course, helps me and does the follow-up work. You have to be sharply attuned to markets in each country to do this kind of business. Vietnam, for example, has to buy a lot of fertilizer and normally gets it from countries like Indonesia. The supplier sells it and the deal is finished. Anybody could do that business, but I don't do that. Instead, I go to the Russians and tell them I want fertilizer, not for cash, but for goods they need. I give them textile products in barter. A normal person goes to buy and sell for 50% profit and is finished. This is no good. If we have a chance, we must utilize our buying power and selling power at 100%. Episode 4, The Antwerp Project in 1984. I had an experience in Belgium that taught me a great lesson. My connections with Antwerp began in 1984, when unexpected offer to take over a company's refinery in the city. I first had the director of the Daewoo London branch investigate the company through London financial markets. I also sent a manager who was an expert on the international oil market to investigate the company Antwerp. From the reports of our people, I learned that the company had had considerable labor disputes and was running in the red. The president of the company had already made offers to renowned Japanese, German, and American companies to take it over. All had refused. I concluded that the company was not in very good financial shape. I asked for the opinion of our manager who went to inspect the company. He said that although the facilities were quite old, the plant, with a little renovation, would be operable. He found that the workers felt that the company president had little interest in the plant, and that the rest of the managerial staff had a greater interest in closing down than in trying to save the company. So the final decision rested with me, and I made it based upon the results of an accurate survey of two facets of operations. First, the facilities were old, but still capable of producing 65,000 barrels of oil a day. The price of $1.5 million for the entire plant was much lower than the cost of building a new facility. The second consideration was the workforce. I diagnosed its low morale as a direct result of the president's indifference and the staff's negligence. I decided that the project was possible if we dispatched superior managerial power to bring about a complete change in attitude. I felt that the workforce, tired of an old, indifferent administration with which it had struggled for years, would have a change of heart with a fresh new administration. A third problem was oil, and this is where I had the greatest confidence. I already had a promise from the government of Libya for a certain volume of crude oil. When Libya started having foreign exchange problems, we had worked out a barter agreement for crude in exchange for a huge apartment construction project. Owning a refinery could be a wise investment for us, since there is greater profit in refined oil than in crude. Of course, there was always the chance that the consumer market for gasoline, kerosene, and other refined oil would not be so great. If there was not great demand, we could first sell some crude and then sell refined oil when the market recovered. Based on these considerations, I gave directives to go ahead with the takeover immediately. The following year, once the takeover was finalized, we selected and dispatched a crack team of administrators to Antwerp. We changed the name to Universal to be consistent with Daewoo, which means Great Universe. Everything was done to create an entirely new atmosphere at the company. In less than a year, the results of our efforts were not only obvious but dramatic. The workforce had new strength and energy to cooperate with management, and I think they learned a thing or two from the example set by Daewoo personnel. Within a year, the company had turned around and made a profit. After that, sales went so well that we got an offer from the former president to buy back the company at 5 times the price we had paid for it. As a result of this success, I developed something of an international reputation as a turnaround expert. But the reason I treasure the Antwerp project is not the fame I got from it or the profit. I treasure it because of the lesson it provided me in the importance of decision-making. Episode 5, Knocking the Sears in Chicago for American Market. The first time that I faced difficulty making a sale was when I came to Chicago in the early 1970s and approached Sears to buy our shirts. We were already supplying American importers, but I wanted to go directly to the big department stores. It's not easy for a small company to go knocking on doors to make sales, but that's what I did, and it was one of the most exciting periods of my life. In those days, nobody knew Daewoo. Our people told me that you needed an appointment to see buyers at a department store like Sears, but if a buyer's secretary announced that Daewoo was calling for an appointment, the buyer would certainly ask, "Who's Daewoo?" Without knowing our company, he or she would never give us a chance. So I decided to go visit Sears, bringing along my sample cases. Once there, I knew we would have a better chance of meeting a buyer. The first day that I went to Sears, they didn't say no, but told us to wait. The buyer had no time, even though I waited for 2 hours. So the next day I returned and talked with the receptionist. It was hard to meet even a secretary. I kept going back for several days until a buyer finally agreed to see me. I never got discouraged. If I had to come back 10 times, that would not bother me as long as I got to see the buyer. I had confidence. Why not? Sears needed good vendors and we could meet their requirements. Finally, I got to see Jim Weiss, the senior buyer of men's shirts at Sears. Then everything was easy. During our first meeting, Mr. Weiss seemed to have confidence in me. I explained everything very logically and sincerely, which maybe surprised him. I offered to install any facility needed to meet Sears's requirements, promised to keep delivery dates, and set good prices. There was room to cut our price and still make a profit, because I would not be selling through importers. Sears gave me a small test order, and then our business gradually increased to a peak of some $200 million a year. Even now, we still supply shirts to Sears. After we got our first big orders, I installed a test lab exactly like the one at Sears. It was a big investment for us in those days, but I didn't care, because we needed to produce quality goods. We gave Sears all the test reports. Mr. Weiss and other buyers visited our factory in Korea, and they were happy to see that lab. We followed their system of quality control and inspection. Soon the shirt buyers at Sears were pro-Kim and introduced me to buyers of other products. We developed more than 100 items for Sears: leather goods, handbags, shoes, baseball gloves. As a small company, we took great pride in supplying one of the biggest stores in the United States. If we had failed to open the door at Sears, then maybe I would not have gained the confidence to export other products, such as cars, to the United States. Once we sold to Sears, of course. Then it was easy to supply other big American retailers. When you're a young company, a little help is invaluable. Sears helped me a lot because I worked hard for it. Our relationship became like that of a family. Now I do everything possible to provide opportunities for Sears. Recently, Korea opened its market to foreign life insurance companies, and I recommended Sears to our government. Daewoo and Allstate, a Sears company, have a joint venture for insurance. I'd like to bring Sears store and credit cards into Korea too. Episode 6, my first job in innovation on the spot. When I first went to work after college, I was responsible for dealing with a bank on behalf of a new company, Hansung Industrial. It was rather easy work. All I had to do was submit company documents to the bank, which either accepted them for higher approval or rejected them. If the papers were rejected, the company would make the necessary changes and I simply resubmitted them. The person who held this position before I joined the company had a tough time with the job, however. He spent much of the day going back and forth between the company and the bank. Drawing up the documents took quite a bit of time, and if they were rejected, he lost even more time. So shortly after I took the job, I carefully watched all processes to discover problems. I became a troubleshooter. I decided that the first step was to establish a good relationship with the women at the bank, who accepted the documents because it was up to them to decide whether or not the papers went on to get higher approval. If by chance there was a minor mistake, the women could correct it and send the papers on. But there was also the problem of competition. Numerous companies were submitting similar documents, and the lower your paper in the pile, the longer your company had wait for approval. At the time, we had a storeroom filled with imported Italian blouse fabric that was not selling, and the person responsible for it was not taking care of the situation. So I put the two together. The fabric was just sitting there, and the women at the bank might like the material. I figured that by selling the material to them cheaply, I would actually be making a profit for the company in more ways than one. Each day the fabric sat in the storehouse, the company was losing not only potential profit, but also potential interest on the profit as well. The fabric made a hit with the women at the bank, and they even got their friends to buy it. They liked the new fabric as well as the price, and at the same time we were clearing out the company warehouse. From then on, the papers I brought to the bank got top priority. The second problem was that I was still stuck with a lot of paperwork that I thought could be reduced by half. This also was easier to solve than I thought. The types of documents were limited, and only a few figures would vary with each document. All the other things were fixed: the company's name, the applicant's seal, the addressee, and so forth. So whenever I had any spare time, I prepared as many documents as possible ahead of time. All the company had to do was fill in the figures and dates. Things had improved, but I was still going to the bank several times a day. By probing, I discovered that only 2 dispatches a day were necessary, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The person who had preceded me on the job had never taken the time to notice that documents submitted to the bank in the morning were approved in the late afternoon, and those submitted in the afternoon were approved the next morning. Unaware of this, he had been spending the whole day running back and forth to the bank with a different document each time. He was merely doing what he had been taught by his predecessor or superior, and he had never thought of innovating to save time, money, and even his own shoe leather. I decided to change our work pattern to fit the bank's schedule. Only a month after I had the job, I was promoted and praised as some kind of genius. At the time, a promotion was considered a real feat for a new employee, but the success of my debut was due only to my ability to perceive problems and to improve the existing situation. As the years passed, I continued to sharpen my problem-solving abilities and to improve my capabilities at innovating. I can confidently say that the ability to make Daewoo grow the way it did was due to managerial innovation in both large and small ways. Episode 7, Think as if you own the company. About a decade ago, on a sultry summer day, shortly after we first began international construction projects, I saw a long line of people standing outside the company offices as I stepped out on business. It did not look like a particularly friendly event, and on my way back to the company, I noticed that most of the people were women, some of whom even had children on their backs. Everyone was sweating in the summer heat. I asked what was going on, and was told that they were families of employees working overseas. All of those family members were standing out in the blazing sun, but the officials who were supposed to be dealing with them were sitting cool and comfortable in an air-conditioned office, feeling sorry for the women and children out there in the sun. Since they too were members of the Daewoo family, I took the office workers to task, and I let the person in charge of the office have a piece of my mind. I asked the office manager if he could go out and stand in the sun for even 5 minutes. His excuse was that the office was too small to accommodate all the people outside. I found that unacceptable. Responsibility has no room for excuses. If the manager thought of the company as his own and thought of the people outside as being, in effect, members of the company, he would have been able to figure out something. There was no excuse whatsoever for leaving so many people out in the hot, blazing sun for so long. Lesson learned. One of the worst things in the world is to stand on the sidelines. If you become filled with excuses and lack a sense of ownership, then you easily fall into mediocrity and the indifference of a mere observer, a mere bystander. Unfortunately, some people refer to this as the age of the bystander. Episode 8, Do It Thoroughly and Completely. We can easily find instances of this suitability syndrome. When I first started Daewoo in 1967, virtually all export products were shipped. The shipping industry was not very developed, and consequently there was great competition to get a shipment loaded and sent, so most of export companies had representatives at the port in Busan. Things were pretty frantic when it came to meeting foreign delivery deadlines. Production plants buzzed around the clock after the products reached the customs clearance. Warehouses in Busan, company representatives had to wait their turn to get a ship. If we failed to secure a ship in time, we would have to wait at least a week for another one, and all the strenuous production effort would have gone for naught. The entire fortune of smaller companies rested on securing a ship in time, so the pressure on company representatives at the docks was tremendous. Naturally, the competition among these representatives was fierce. Representatives who were not completely alert could easily be outdone by their competitors. There were even instances where one company's goods were loaded onto a ship, but after the representative left satisfied, the goods were unloaded and replaced by goods from another company. That there were 3 types. It was interesting to observe company representatives at the port. The first type left after confirming arrival of their company's goods at the dock. The second type would confirm arrival at the dock and stay until the goods were loaded. But third type of representative stayed to confirm the ship's departure. Representative of the first type often lost out, and those of the second type lost once or twice out of 10 chances. But representatives of the third type were always successful. The first 2 types of representatives were doing what they thought was good at the time, but it often ended in failure for their companies. I ordered the representatives of our company to stay on the dock until the ship was actually beyond the horizon. That was finishing the product, so to speak. As a result, we did not lose a single shipment at the dock, and our deliveries were always on time. This was highly essential in establishing a reputation for reliability with international clients. The word got around that Daewoo could be trusted to deliver. Lesson learned. No matter what I do, I like to do it thoroughly. That is the key to success. And I have instilled this principle of doing things thoroughly in our employees. This is a principle that people should, not just products. Doing your very best until the very end is not only important, it is essential. This has become a tradition at Daewoo, and the very essence of Daewoo corporate culture. Episode 9, Creating New Markets in Africa. I like to pioneer in creating new markets in Africa and other seemingly difficult places. In the 3 African countries we picked, there have been no big problems. We know the important people there, which is good insurance, and they know that we are working for the country. If you look ahead 20 years, the countries I selected could become big markets. The potential is there. We are not looking just for today, but for the long run. In the first stage, the first 10 years in those countries, at least I didn't lose money. We developed relationships, showed we could help, and the business grew. In Sudan, for instance, I took a long-term approach beginning in 1976. No companies from America or Japan were investing money there, but I built a tire factory, which is still the biggest industry in Sudan. The Sudanese much appreciated this plant, which saved the country foreign exchange. Soon we found other business in Sudan. Daewoo built a hotel and a city road because the country was hosting a meeting of African heads of state. I didn't expect any big profit. We worked around the clock, building that hotel, and everyone could see us under the lights. Then they had confidence in me and our company. Sudan was short of many raw materials, which we supplied, and we buy a lot of its cotton. We built many roads with a joint venture construction company, so we were thought of as a local company. We gave scholarships to people in Sudan. The Sudanese know Daewoo very well. The government there has been changed by a coup, but we have no problems because people know we work for the country. In Libya, we worked very hard and got almost 10 billion in construction and trading business over 10 years. If we do that, a country needs and give a very competitive price. Its citizens appreciate it. In Nigeria, we discovered that it was almost impossible to get good maintenance for automobiles, so we set up a facility to service cars within 24 hours and quickly made Daewoo cars. A leader in the Nigerian market, we not only did business but helped Korea. Most of the African countries had diplomatic relations only with North Korea, but after getting to know Daewoo, they have normalized diplomatic relations with South Korea. Today in Africa, you can see our construction sites in Liberia, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, Ivory Coast, Botswana, Angola, and most West African countries. Construction projects usually take about 2 years, so problems of lodging, communications, and transportation are first solved. And then our trading company follows. Lesson learned. By managing risks carefully in Africa, we've opened markets that have proved to be both durable and profitable. But we choose them not in spite of, but because of the risk. Episode 10, Helping Others is to help yourself. Every person needs help in one way or another, at one time or another, and no person is so worthless as to be able to help another. We are all interdependent and need one another's help. While doing business, I have often been impressed by how very important this is. For example, when I first started Daewoo, we did some business with an Indonesian trading firm named The. At the time, we were exporting fabric to the for about 17 cents per yard, but the Indonesian government suddenly put restrictions on imports, and the market price of fabric there fell to about 10 cents per yard. Under a long-term contract, however, The had no way out of our contract and continued to import at the higher contract price. Knowing this, I tried to minimize The's loss by reducing its imports, but the firm was still in financial trouble. If it did not come up with $30,000, the bank was going to take it over. I went directly to The myself and handed the firm the money it needed. At the time, our company had only $10,000 in paid-in capital, so $30,000 to us was a huge amount, and it was a tough decision to make. Within a year, things changed dramatically. The Indonesian market opened again, and the price of fabric shot up to 36 cents per yard. Our contract was still at 17 cents per yard, which The could have legally kept to, but The offered to give me 35 cents per yard, which was only a cent lower than the market price. So we received 35 cents per yard for 17-cent per yard material, and we eventually made over $1 million on the deal. So you can see how I was rewarded for the $30,000 I had given thee when it was in trouble. There is always a reward for helping others. It may not always come back to the one who did the good deed, but someone will receive the benefits. Lesson learned. This is a principle of life: to help others is to help yourself. If you have your eye on your own profits and avoid helping those in need, you may do all right in the short run. But in the long run, it will catch up with you. If you think only of your own profit in human relations, then you are putting yourself at risk. You have to put the principle of mutual benefit to work. If one side takes everything at the expense of the other, then the relationship is not going to last very long. Thank you very much.